everyone, assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming with my friend Ayeshah. We're going to be talking about our lives growing up and how it was growing up with interracial / intercultural parents. My dad is from Turkey, as a lot of you know, and my mom is from America. And then your parents are from?
My mom is American and my dad is from Morocco.
So I also talked about in one of my videos how it was for me being married to somebody who's from a different ethnicity, but it's a little bit different in the sense that my husband grew up in the United States and so did I, whereas like my dad actually grew up in Turkey and my mom actually grew up in America, and it's like a similar situation for you. And funnily enough, like your husband is also a different ethnicity from you as well.
Sure is.
So her husband's Armenian, she's half Moroccan, half white. My husband's Ethiopian and I'm half Turkish, half white. So that's like our background. So we're just gonna go through some questions and both answer them about how it was for us growing up. Okay, so the first question is, how did your parents meet? And I wanna ask this because I feel like it's oftentimes like an interesting story, especially about like the beginning of their relationship. And another thing that's like unique about us is that so both of our mothers are American and they also converted to Islam after meeting our fathers. So that's another thing that we're gonna like incorporate into this and discuss. So my parents met. My mom was studying archaeology and my dad, so she was getting her PhD, and so she went to Turkey to do an archaeological dig, and my dad was the driver for the archaeology group. So he picked her up at like the bus station to bring her to the group, and that's how like they first met. But then eventually down the line he got his like undergraduate degree in archaeology, and they ended up working in the same group. So their relationship I think developed over like I don't know, like a year. I actually don't know how long, but they, in the beginning he was working as a driver, and then towards the end he was actually like part of her group as well. So yeah, they met in Turkey. My mom lived in Turkey for a number of years total. I'm not sure exactly how long. So that's basically how they met. Yeah.
So my dad lived in Morocco for like mostly his whole life until he was in his early 20s, and then he kind of was like, I'm just gonna go to America and try to find like a better life, try to find work. And my mom's from Massachusetts, so my dad had come to America and was introduced to a bunch of like Muslims, and he just kind of got thrown into a group of people he didn't really know, but he was like, they're Muslims, so I'm just gonna like hang out with them. And they weren't always the best influence, but they ended up going to a social event that the friends like invited him to, and my mom ended up being there, and they just kind of like connected. And my dad actually didn't speak any English, so my mom was like having a hard time trying to talk to him, but like eventually like their relationship just ended up growing, and like she was like trying to teach him English and he was like, oh, this is Islam, and it was just like very interesting.
So they kind of both taught each other.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't even know like how they communicated. Like my dad like literally like I think it was like hand gestures. Like my dad did not speak English, and my mom was like, cool, okay. So yeah.
I guess with my parents it's sort of similar. My mom was trying to learn Turkish because she was in Turkey, and she did end up learning Turkish. Like I would say she's pretty much fluent now. But so in the beginning I think they were communicating in Turkish, even though her Turkish was really broken. And then my dad also like started telling my mom about Islam, and she had always felt like she saw a lot of contradictions in Christianity. That's how she felt. And so once she like learned more about Islam, she like found that it was actually like it made a lot more sense to her and like things like that. So he was kind of the person who introduced her to that. But then like later down the line, once they moved to the US, he like found her teachers and stuff, and people who could teach the Islamic knowledge that she needed in English and things like that.
Same with my mom. Yeah, she kind of like didn't really understand like what Christianity was about. Like I mean her whole life, like her parents were like religious, I guess, like they would like go to church and like do whatever and stuff, but like she didn't really like, it wasn't like she had like a connection to it. Like she kind of just like wanted to learn more about Islam, and like she ended up finding teachers like through my dad's brother, which is how like I think our moms met. Like they were getting taught separately, and then they were like, oh, there's these two converts, hey,
and then they were kind of being taught person.
And then like they met, and then us,
so that's how our parents met and like how the beginning of their relationship was. Okay, so my next question is, when you were growing up, did you realize at a certain point, oh, my parents are not from the same place, or oh, my parents are different races, or is that something you just always knew?
I guess like when I was like really young, I guess I just didn't notice a difference. Like I just I don't know, like my parents got along really well. Like that's really all I can remember.
Yeah.
And then I think I wanted to say, like when I don't even know, maybe elementary school, or actually maybe it was earlier than that. I started like wearing hijab like really, really early. I was in 2nd grade when I started. And I remember a kid like making fun of me in school, and I was like very upset about it because of that like whole situation. I like kind of like really like thought about, I don't even know how old I was, but I kind of like really thought about like my parents and like how they're both kind of different and like how we grew up and stuff. And like I went to like predominantly white school, so like people like just didn't understand kind of like how our like family was. It was just kind of interesting. And I think that was like the first time I like kind of realized, like I didn't like put a lot of emphasis on it. I was just kind of like, oh, like my parents are different, like whatever. And then when I got older,
like it impacted you more.
Yeah, like I feel like I noticed it way more.
Yeah. For me, I feel like it's something that I've always known subconsciously, because like when I was younger, like I was saying, my mom is pretty much fluent in Turkish because she learned it like when she was working and stuff. And my dad knows Turkish as well. And so my parents were trying to get me and my brother to be bilingual, and it kind of worked on my brother, but it really did not work on me, because when my mom would speak to me in Turkish, and like my mom was, you know, my primary caregiver, especially in the beginning, she didn't work and my dad was working, and then she went back to work. She would try to speak to me in Turkish, and I would throw temper tantrums when she would do it. Like I would not want to speak Turkish with her at all. And I, like looking back, I don't know why I did that, but it's possible that somehow like subconsciously I knew that was not her first language or something along those lines, and I just wanted to speak the language that I knew I felt most comfortable with maybe at the time, and that I knew she felt most comfortable with. I'm not sure why I did that, but I feel like that's maybe an indication that I kind of knew all along that there was at least like a language difference, if not like, you know, beyond that. But obviously, yeah, as you get older, you think about it more and you think about what that means more. So I think as I got older and got to high school and stuff like that, I started to think a lot more about it. But, you know, when you're younger, you just kind of take things like as they are, like, oh, this is just what it is. The next question is, what do people guess your ethnicity is?
This is a hard question because I get like a mixture of things.
Okay.
Like I definitely don't get Moroccan. Moroccan is not one of the ones I get.
Yeah.
My eyes are like very like almond shape, so some people think that I'm like of Asian descent.
Yeah.
So like sometimes they say like, I don't know, like maybe like Indonesian or like Filipino or something.
I can see people saying Filipino.
Sometimes they say Egyptian, which I literally do not see. Tunisian or Algerian I'll get, which is like the closest to Morocco, I feel like.
Yeah.
But mostly, like those are the ones I really get.
Yeah.
And especially like I don't like, neither of us have accents, so it's like really hard for people to like pinpoint. Like they definitely do not think that I'm half black and half white.
Yeah.
Like that is like 100%. Like they just think I'm from somewhere.
Because even though your dad is Moroccan, I think a lot of time we think of Moroccan people as being like, you know, like a mixed color or being white or something like that. But there are black Moroccans, and like that's what your dad is.
Yes.
He's like a black Moroccan.
He's very, very dark.
Yeah. I feel like when you're mixed, like, I mean, even if you're not mixed, just if you're like a hijabi and then people are assuming that your background is something that's not American, which I talked about also in my last video, people are just gonna guess a lot of different things for you or try to like figure out what you are. For me, I think I usually get Arab or like Lebanese. That's like the dominant two that I get. People usually don't guess Turkish, and I'm not really sure why, but I think maybe it's because like the way I wear my hijab is not really the way they wear it in Turkey. So I think that
you're light. I feel like because you're so light skinned, and they just they just associate people light skinned with a hijab Lebanese. Like it's like very like people just like do not think about like what actually
or like
the answer
Arab
might be.
in general.
Yeah,
like, that's just
Well, even my mom is white, and like people are like, so you're like Arab, right? And my mom's like, no, I'm literally American. Like,
but when you wear a hijab, people just go to Arab. Like a lot of the time. Yeah,
definitely.
Especially if you're if you have a lighter skin tone.
Of course.
So then the next question is, what's the coolest / nicest thing about growing up in an intercultural / interracial household?
I would say, I mean, it was pretty cool, like, learning. I'm not fluent in Arabic. I try my best. But it was so hard because, like, since my dad was, like, trying to learn English, like, the focus of my house was so, like, English-driven. Because my dad was like, oh my god, I want to learn English. Like, my mom never learned Arabic. Me and my brother, like, I know more Arabic than my brother does. But, like, neither of us are completely fluent. Like, we can, like, somewhat hold a conversation and, like, talk to our family and stuff. But I think it was pretty cool that we did learn Like, we learned some Arabic, we learned some French and stuff like that, so I thought that was pretty cool. Also, just, like, different cultural things that we would do, I thought was pretty cool. Like, the different outfits we would wear, certain things that we would do that I thought were pretty interesting. I don't know. Like, different foods we would eat.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like, I don't know. Like, obviously, like, my mom would make, like, mac and cheese and hot dogs, but like my dad would make like more extravagant meals that like, but he wouldn't do it like every day, which I feel like was pretty cool. Like we would just like get to experience like other types of food and stuff.
So I think the coolest thing for me, I think it's like very much what you said, kind of like, I also am not fluent in Turkish and English. I tried learning Turkish when I was in college because I really like protested so much as a child that I never learned it. Like I knew like words and I knew like how to pronounce things, but like I could not speak the language at all. I learned it in college, but now that I've been out of college for like a couple years now, I've like forgotten a lot too. So I think it's more just like fluency in two different cultures as opposed to like a language necessarily if you don't end up fluent in the language of one of your parents. I think that's cool. Like you were saying, like the different like cuisines. So my dad likes to cook a lot, and he used to have a cafe and things like that. So because he likes doing that, he'll like cook Turkish dishes and things like that. And my mom has also learned some Turkish dishes. So I think it's like getting a mixture of different cuisines is also pretty cool. I think another thing also is being able to travel to the country that that one of your parents is from, like, and that's like a place that we would travel every couple of years. So it's like, it's just like having an extra travel opportunity basically. It's cool if you get to explore another country that you're not necessarily growing up in. The next question is, what is the hardest thing about being from a family that's intercultural or interracial?
So many things. I mean, I guess it just depends on like what route you take. Like, I think it's hard having parents, like half your family is Muslim and half your family is not Muslim. Like, I feel like that's been pretty hard because it's like you want to connect with your Muslim side of the family, but they literally live like halfway across the world. Yeah. And then you want to connect with your non-Muslim family, and it's hard to connect with them because like they just have different like values and like I don't know, ideals.
That's definitely true.
So it's like you try, and it's just like hard. Like I don't have a lot of family here, so it's just like hard. I mean, like I have my parents, and my dad has like definitely different morals and goals than I do. Like he just like grew up differently than I did, and then my mom grew up differently than I did, and just so now they just like tried to mold me into this person that just like is different from both of them. So it's like hard to connect with them in a way that like maybe they connected with their parents when they were younger.
Right, yeah.
But definitely the family thing is like really hard. Yeah. And like there's a lot of like, I guess like I wouldn't say backlash, but there's a lot of like things that come with it, and like things that like normal people would not have to deal with. But like you would have to deal with.
Normal people.
I mean like the average person would not have to deal with certain things that I deal with. And then especially because I married a convert as well. So there's even more things that get brought up.
With the same things in your own relationship.
Which like I feel like in my head when I was younger I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna like, I don't know, I didn't have an idea of like who I was gonna marry and stuff, but like I definitely didn't want to put myself in that situation again, and then like I'm in the same situation. So it's just like very ironic. I feel like
I mean it's a similar situation, but I think because he was born here that helps too, because then you have like that similar culture.
Exactly. And he's like from like a country that's like has Arab influence, so like the culture is like very similar, even though like it's just different.
Okay, so my phone like died basically because it's sitting in the sun right now and it overheated. So we're gonna have to do some of these questions again. So we were on number 5, and she was just talking about the hardest thing about, you know, growing up in an intercultural/interracial home. So for me, I think it was very similar to what you said. You were talking about like having non-Muslim family and then having Muslim family, right? Yes. Okay, so for me, like I feel like that's also a hard thing, like having, you know, a non-Muslim side and then having like a Muslim side, and then not really feeling like I can connect to my Muslim side as much because of the language barrier and because they also live like halfway across the world, and then not feeling like I can fully connect with my non-Muslim side of the family because, you know, they're not Muslim, so we don't necessarily have all the same values. So yeah, I think I can relate to that in a lot of ways. And then I think also another thing is like feeling like because you grew up in the culture of one of your parents and not in the culture of the other parent, or not as much in the culture of the other parent, there's sometimes like cultural misunderstandings, either because of like a linguistic difference or just because of like a different culture. So like, you know, maybe my dad will be saying something in English in a way that he would have said it in Turkish, and that's not what I would expect as a native English speaker. And so then that can cause like issues sometimes, or like, you know, he has a certain expectation about ways that like, you know, parenting should be or ways that relationships should be or something like that. And for me, as somebody growing up in the US, I have a different expectation. And again, that can just like cause conflict. So I think that's maybe the hardest thing for me, is like just feeling like I have some cultural miscommunication with one of my parents. So then number 6 is, what's something people assume about your parents because they're intercultural and both of our moms converted to Islam after meeting our dads? So I'll go first for this one. Mm-hmm. So for me, and we already did this question, so I know that for her it's the same thing. But so for me, it's that people often assume that my mom converted to Islam for my dad, like to marry him. And that's just not the case. My mom converted to Islam because she learned about it and she believed in it. And like people who know more about Islam will know that if a person like says the 2 shahadas, which is the 2 testifications of faith, which is how you become a Muslim, solely because they want to marry someone or because they want to be with somebody or converting for someone, then they don't actually become Muslim. So my mom didn't do that. She converted because she believes in it. And so she actually is a Muslim, and then they got married afterwards. And like same thing with your mom, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So like, you know, they learned about it, they believed in it, and then they converted. It wasn't like for another person. And I think that assumption like bothers me a lot, because I'm like I know my mom, she's like, you know, she's an intellectual person, same with yours. Like they're not just going to jump into something for a man. You know what I mean? I think that's a very like kind of condescending assumption sometimes. Or okay, literally the cat. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's like something. And then another thing that people assume is that my mom doesn't know Turkish, and I can see why they would assume that, because like, you know, she didn't grow up there, but she is actually fluent in the language because she worked there for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I can see why people assume that, but it's just not true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same thing, like people would just assume that my mom converted just because my dad was like, convert, like no, it just like wasn't like that.
Yeah,
and I mean, like obviously I can just speak for myself, and obviously like for your mom and stuff, like like they actually wanted to learn like the knowledge and like actually like wanted to be Muslim. Like maybe some people it's like not the case, and some people just like
they say they're converting, but in reality they're just doing it for another person.
Or
maybe
they don't.
Some people do that.
Some people actually do that, and then the kids just end up being confused, and then or it's like they don't really know.
Yeah, like, but that's just like not how it was for our parents.
Like it was very like straightforward, like we're Muslim, like this is what we're doing, this is our culture. Like all the expectations were laid to us like at a very young age. Right. So what I was trying to say. I don't know why I like couldn't think of
because both of our parents were on board with those expectations.
Yes, exactly. And there was never like any like miscommunication. It was always like everyone was on the same page. This is the culture. This is what we practice. This is the religion. Like we went to like Saturday school at a young age. Both of us.
The same one.
Yes. And both of our moms taught.
Yeah, at the school.
Yeah.
So clearly they were believing in it. And
obviously.
Enough to be able to teach us.
Yeah, definitely. So.
And also like both of our moms saw like didn't feel very connected with Christianity. Saw like inconsistencies in the religion that they didn't really, you know, like, and so then they were actually interested in another religion, you know. So that's number 6. And then the last question, number 7, is do you feel like you could have ever married someone who is from a different culture than you, meaning like grew up in a different country and then like came to your country or something like that? And for me, I was saying previously when we filmed this before
part 2
I was saying that I feel like I couldn't. Obviously, like, I don't know, maybe I could, right? But I feel like it would be hard because, like, I know what it was like growing up, and I think, like, it works really well for some people, and then for other people it might not work as well. And I think, like, when you have, like, cultural miscommunications between, like, a parent and a child, it's one thing. Like, it happens, you get over it, whatever. But when it's happening from, like, spouse to spouse, that can be difficult, especially when you're raising children, things like that. So, like, I think it would be hard. Now, I'm not saying this meaning like don't ever marry somebody who's from a different country, because obviously my parents did it, your parents did it, like lots of people do it, and it's fine. But it's just like having grown up in it, I think it would have been hard for me. And I knew that because I grew up in it. But
it takes like a lot of patience. I feel like. And I'm not saying neither of us have patience. It's just like it's just like it's like another added thing on top of all the things like in marriage.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just like hard.
And you did marry a convert, so there is like maybe more of a battle there, or more of like difficulty there than with me, because my husband's Muslim and like we grew up in an overarching culture of like Islam and the USA, right? You know, still, I mean, your husband converted, so like you guys are on the same page now, kind of.
We've like been on the same like page to get married, obviously, but like obviously there's still like cultural differences, like things that he grew up doing that like are different than like what I grew up doing, and like, but I mean like the cultures are very similar in a lot of ways. So there's some things that I'd be like, oh yeah, like culturally like we do this or whatever, and he'd be like, oh, we kind of do something similar to that, which I thought it was like pretty interesting. But definitely it's like I wouldn't even like I don't know, if my husband was like straight from like an Arab country, like didn't know much English, and like I don't know, they just like grew up differently. It's like you have different cultural expectations. Some people can deal with it, some people, you know, don't have an issue like being married to somebody who's a bit different from them in that aspect. But I think we both kind of agreed that for us, like it might be too hard, but like we don't know because we didn't do it. All right, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And also feel free to follow me on Instagram. And you on Instagram? Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I'll put our Instagram handles on the screen somewhere. So like, I know you do a lot of like makeup related things sometimes. I've been taking a little hiatus, but I usually do. And then for me, like it's my usual, you know, YouTube Islamic focused stuff, and then also recently I've been posting a lot of like home decor kind of stories, and I plan on posting more because I like have moved back home now to my parents' house, so I'm like kind of redecorating my bedroom. And so if you want to see content like that, feel free to follow me on Instagram. So I will see you guys inshallah in next week's video. Assalamu alaikum. Bye. So in today's video I'm going to be filming with my friend Ayeshah. You're gonna look like an idiot. But like I guess you wouldn't normally see. Let me just double check it's still filming. I always get paranoid like if it's flipped that it's gonna not be filming. No, it is. Okay. It is? Yeah, it is. It's filming. You said no, and then you said it is. So I was like, whoa. Okay. I think it was very similar to what you said. You were talking about like, what were you talking about? I don't remember. Dude, I'm like the worst. Everything was like basically, I wouldn't say like, everything was just like kind of like said to us. I don't know. Like, what do you mean? Like it wasn't like very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Man, pregnancy brain. I can't think. It's just like the Salatullah, Salamullah, ala al-hadi, Rasulillah.